breakfast. Right, well, prominent New York-based landscape architect is in New Zealand. His name is Ken Smith, and he's been travelling around the country looking at urban design. That's his specialty. He's been meeting with the Auckland Council at the Reset Urban Design workshop on Tuesday. He's also talking at Unitec as well as part of the Unitec Forum for the Future, which will debate the topic, creating resilient communities. He's doing that tonight at the Unitec campus in Mount Albert. But Ken Smith's in the studio this morning. Morning, Ken.
Morning.
Lovely to have you in. Now, on Tuesday you were meeting with the Auckland Council for their basically their vision for the next 30 years. Tell us that we're doing at least something right.
Well, actually, we had a very interesting discussion about public participation in the planning process, and it was a very, very good discussion and interesting.
Which is a hot topic because we've just recently amalgamated all these councils all around into one big super city, and that was something that everyone was worried about, whether or not people would be consulted on changes.
Right. So I know it's a hot topic, and people are talking about how it might work and how you actually get people involved in planning.
Yeah.
I also got a chance to see the waterfront under construction that will open soon, and it's a beautiful project.
Now that's round by what they call the tank farm.
Yes.
Yeah. A good project, you reckon?
It's a really good project. It's actually some of the best urban design work I've seen anywhere.
Wow. Well, that's a thumbs up.
I mean, yeah, total thumbs up. I mean, there's an amazing rain gardens that are built into the street for sustainability and drainage.
Yeah.
There's this one section with these big steps that go right down into the water. You could literally walk into the water. It's totally cool.
Which is funny in this modern time when everything's all about safety and making sure people don't drown and that kind of
yeah I know, but people really want to get down to the water because and it's hard in a city like this because the city sits high against the river and you don't really get a sense. You can see it, but you really don't get a sense you can touch it.
Yeah, well, that's been an issue over the past decades. Is actually our access to the waterfront, particularly right from the CBD, just hasn't been there. It's been owned by port companies, and it's been a working wharf rather than a people's wharf.
Yeah, it's true of all cities, and it's true here as well. I can see. Also, we saw the old tanks. There's two beautiful old concrete silos. I imagine most people might think they're ugly. But, they frame the street, and they're like a big industrial gateway to the city.
What should we do with them?
You should just keep them. I mean, I don't,
Can we turn them into something useful, but still keep them there?
Actually, I'll bet the rock climbers would love the interior. Or you could probably do some kind of art installation or maybe some kind of cinema projection or something.
Oh, that'd be cool. Yeah. Because one thing that you do and really enthusiastic about is gardens on top of roofs.
Yes.
Roof gardens, right?
Yeah.
As a way, is it an eco thing that you're interested in, or is it just an aesthetic?
Well, I live in New York City where we don't have a lot of space, and it's all building, and so the roofs become a very important open space for people, and people look at them certainly, but people do use them, and so I'm always trying to find everywhere that I can make landscape and get more green into the city.
Actually, for people on the video stream, there's a picture of you sitting in one of these gardens. Almost looks like a Japanese style
I look like
garden.
a garden gnome.
Yeah. So nice. Well, you're sitting there reading a book. Is it a pleasant place to read a book?
Well, that's a stage shot. I'm sitting on a rock, and it's not the most comfortable place. This is actually not this is a viewing garden, so people don't normally go into this particular garden.
Because it's the garden itself. I mean, there's a few shrub type trees there and a lot of rocks. It doesn't look like a functional, say, vegetable garden sort of place.
No, this is purely a viewing garden. It's it was designed for a high-rise building to look down upon. It was really to decorate a rooftop for them. And
they create a lot of energy efficiency options for people, don't they?
Yeah, actually, roof gardens do a couple things. They provide a layer of insulation on top of the roof, so they do provide better energy efficiency for buildings. But they also do positive things in terms of stormwater runoff because they hold water and use water. They actually reduce the amount of runoff and the loads on the storm sewers.
Would that be something important for New Zealand? I mean, we're not as densely populated as New York.
No, but even in the central urban area, you have a lot of paving and you've got a lot of slopes and you get a lot of rain. And so when it does rain, the water rushes off pretty quickly into the bay. And so it's an important consideration. And they're functional and useful, and people enjoy them.
Your talk at the Unitec Forum for the Future, you're part of the panel there. You'll be looking at creating resilient communities. What do you mean by that?
Well, it's really an idea of sustainability, how you make communities that are living and healthy and how they can change over time. I think this issue of resilience is one because a lot of our cities are very fixed and hard, and there's a real effort to try to see how we make cities that can adapt and change. And I think a lot of people are thinking about perhaps the impacts of global climate change and how do we make cities that actually can adapt to changes in the environment.
And you're going to be heading to Christchurch and looking at how they're going to be rebuilding. Talking about resilience, we can't really say that Christchurch has been a resilient city. Essentially,
no,
I mean, it's the heart of it has been ripped out.
Right. It's actually hard to imagine how you would actually plan for that kind of cataclysmic event. I mean, it's such an unusual thing. But certainly in the rebuilding, I'm sure the efforts will be made to build a much more resistant to earthquake kind of construction. But there are a lot of issues involved. I know I live near the World Trade Center in New York City, and you know, it's not being rebuilt exactly as it was before, because even though it's a horrible thing, you have an opportunity to rethink the situation and how you might improve it. And so there's always some opportunity in a disaster to improve things.
So apart from, say, in Christchurch's case, apart from building buildings that can withstand shaking, what other considerations should they be looking at?
I think there are a whole sort of, environmental things that would be worth looking at in terms of how you make a city that's really efficient and green, and also the social space of the city. You know, cities are denser now, and how do you make places that are really good for people? And I would think also you would think about the economics of the city. How do you make the city just more viable and a good business place as well?
Does being green and energy efficient have to be expensive?
Not necessarily. I mean, what's happening now in the industry is that there's a lot of new technologies that are being standardized and built into kind of what I would say is common practice. A lot of what I think in Britain they call BREEAM, and in the United States they call LEED, which really the sustainability standards. A lot of those were once sort of adventurous or far advanced ideas, and now they're actually becoming quite standard, and you're finding them in most new building construction.
Yeah.
So any new building construction is bound to be more efficient. It's going to be structurally more sound. It's an opportunity to really improve things.
Yeah, and one of the things that I think city planners struggle with is the creating the harmony between people and pedestrians and cars and the buildings themselves, and how to create a space that's friendly for people and that's not offensive in some ways.
Yeah, I know in my city, New York City, the mayor has a big initiative to build bike paths throughout the city, and that's making a big change. We're actually taking traffic lanes away and converting them into bicycle lanes. And, I think what they found in New York City was we had more traffic lanes than we needed. And we needed bike ways because that's a very efficient way, and it's a very healthy way for people to get around. Yeah. And so that's good.
There's been a move in Wellington and now in downtown Auckland as well to create, I can't remember the name of what they give these spaces, but it's where cars and people can be at the same time.
Yes. I saw a couple of these shared streets.
That's it, yeah.
And they're very interesting. Yeah. They're a little dangerous for me because, we drive on the other side of the street in North America, and so I'm always looking the wrong direction. I'm afraid I'm going to run over all the time.
Well, that's right. So there is that element of danger, but I suppose people just need to get used to it. Yeah?
I think so. And what I saw at the waterfront, they had a shared street, and they actually had put cobblestones on it. So it's actually a textured street. So it's not a street that the cars are going to be zipping along quite as fast.
It changes the behavior of the driver.
It changes the behavior of the driver. I think they drive slower. They're more on the lookout for pedestrians.
Yeah. I hope that our cities are going to be bringing back trams a lot more, say like Melbourne.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I think that in terms of energy usage, I'm told that heating, space heating is a big use, but transportation is the other really big use of energy. And so if we can have more shared transit like streetcars, and even in Auckland, I know there used to be streetcars here at one time, I've been told. And so if you can bring them back, that's very good.
I think they ripped them all out in the 50s or something.
Yeah.
We've got the big event, the Rugby World Cup, coming up this year. Is there a risk that cities plan for these big events but don't plan further into the future? They just plan to create facilities and street planning for one particular event as opposed to the people who live there longer term.
Yeah, I think that in many of these, like Olympics and these big events, I think cities are starting to do sort of two-level planning strategy. They plan for the actual event, and there are temporary structures and things that go up that may go away or may not. And then they also try to find a way to plan for something that's actually more enduring and actually contributes to the city.
That's important, isn't it?
That's very important. I suspect the waterfront work, that's very enduring work, and it's clearly a part of the city where there's going to be a lot of redevelopment. And so that's a very enduring thing. And of course, the big events presumably help the city economically by bringing people in to spend money and going to restaurants and all of that. Yeah.
Well, it's great to have you in the country. Ken Smith is a New York-based urban architect, and he's going to be talking tonight as part of a panel at the Unitec Forum for the Future. There's a whole bunch of talks over the next few weeks every Thursday, but of course tonight being Thursday, the 21st at Unitec, the Mount Albert campus. What time does that start? 6:30. Great. Thanks. 6:30 to 8. Okay, and anyone can go along to that as well. Ken, thanks very much for your time and joining us in the Kiwi studio today.
Thank you.